It's always a surprise to me what music takes us into a meeting like this, and a great choice. I am happy to see everyone here this morning. This is amazing. It's been a long time in preparation, and I'm here to get things started. My name's Dan LeClaire. I'm the CEO of the Global Business School Network, GBSN. The Global Business School Network is a global network of business schools, about 130 of them, focused on emerging economies, focused on accelerating international development. And if you think about an organization like GBSN and what it does, we've always believed that management skills are essential for economic development, building businesses and creating jobs. But we also believe, and we realize that we have a responsibility that goes beyond business, that we must build the skills and capabilities, the mindsets that generate more inclusive and sustainable development. And so it's not just teaching business and management the way we always have. It's rather about changing what we teach and how we teach it, and to do it in a way that's for the common good. So a lot of the work of GBSN is not really just improving access to quality management education, but helping to shift, to change management education in a way that's beneficial to all. So that's why we're here. We believe that the things that we teach, the capabilities, the skills we develop in finance need to change. And they need to change in a way that makes business better, to enable business to be a powerful force for good in our society. So I'm really excited to learn here. I'm not an expert in finance, but I know we have many here, and I know that there are many very passionate voices about how things need to change. So I'm excited and ready to get started. Now, the people that brought us here are in a wonderful group. We've met, it seems like almost every Monday and Monday night, my time in the US, early mornings in some other places. But one of the point people, the chair of the leadership team, is Aditya Singh. I met Aditya, I forget exactly where, and I immediately realized that there was something special about Aditya. He was leading a new school, and I knew that school was destined to have international notoriety just because of Aditya's personality and his outreach and his nature. And I was right. The Athena School of Management is on our radars, is making a big difference globally. And before becoming director at Athena, he had, I think, decades of experience in the private sector. So we have a person that's been on both sides of, been in private sector and in academia with us today. He's also working with the University of Chicago's ESG Center, which must be an interesting experience given their history and influence over the years, and serves on the advisory board of the Business Graduates Association, a very respected new body out of the Association of MBAs. But we also have Ivan joining us from New Zealand. Where's Ivan? I want to make sure. Ivan Diaz-Rainey is joining us from New Zealand, where he's director of the Climate and Energy Finance Group. He's been fond of reminding us that it's one of the world's largest such groups in the world. And that's at the University of Otago, a great member of GBSN. Ivan's also director of the Global Research Alliance for Sustainable Finance and Investment. That's a mouthful. We abbreviate, we call it GRASFI, and instrumental in bringing this group together. We appreciate you being a leader in this group, Ivan. And then we have Viviana Torinelli. Viviane is co-founder of the Brazilian Alliance of Sustainable Finance and Investment, that's BRASFI, and a professor at Fundacio Dom Cabral, FDC school. I actually am a part of the advisory board of FDC and a respected long-term member of GBSN and a great school in Brazil. We also have Felipe Calderon. He's the head of the Washington CSIP Graduate School of Business and executive director of the Governor Jose B. Fernandez Center for Sustainable Finance. That's at the Asian Institute of Management in the Philippines, in Manila. And before that, I understand that Felipe for 22 years was with the Business Development Bank in Canada and Vancouver. So he too comes from the private sector. One of the things I find really great about this event is that when I look across not only the hosts here, the leadership team, but also the participants, I see that we have a lot of crossovers, people that have been in both business and academia. We have some that are really focused on business. We have some that are really focused on academia, but today we're focused on the intersection. So I'm going to pause now and I'm going to actually stop and turn it over to Aditya. He's going to take us through the morning, the afternoon, the evening, depending on where you are. Before handing it over to Aditya, though, I want to point to Emma. Emma Martins is our point person. She's the one responsible for orchestrating everything that we do today. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to her via direct message on the chat. If you have any questions that might be useful for her to answer. So Aditya, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Dan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, perhaps even good night, whichever part of the world you are in. And it's heartening to see that attendees, our participants in this roundtable, are actually from the four corners of a round globe. And that exactly tells you how the world has changed so much in the past 2.5 years. A gathering like this 3 to 4 years ago would have been impossible, perhaps, to imagine doing this online, getting all of us together without incredible logistics. And yet here we sit today at different time zones with different drinks in our hands, and yet we can all come and meet together to discuss something which is a clear and present danger. Yes, I paraphrased that from the old Tom Clancy novel, but that is so true, isn't it? I am currently based out of Bombay or Mumbai, whichever you prefer in India, and we're currently facing a heat wave of epic proportions. The average temperature across India right now is in the upper 40s and the lower 50s centigrade, not Fahrenheit. And that just tells you how important it is for us to understand that the time for action and the time for each of us to move forward to the next level to create impact is now. And hence, this community came together, the GBS and Impact Community for Sustainable Finance and ESG Investments, because we believe that there are 3 or 4 great silos in which expertise is floating around and we discuss today. On one side, we have great academicians who are coming up with great research and great knowledge being created across the world. On the other, we have great practitioners who are implementing things in the field of sustainable finance, ESG impact investments on another silo. Simultaneously, you have the global north, where a lot of expertise lies. Europe, for example, is definitely a generation and a half ahead, perhaps New Zealand too, for that matter, among a lot of other countries when it comes to what we're doing in this field. And then you have the global south, which carries momentum, which carries weight by its sheer mass, but needs help and guidance to be able to create more value addition and impact in their local environments by a perspective of sustainable finance and ESG investments. And that's what gave rise to this community, ladies and gentlemen, where we could have a platform where we could have the global north sharing its expertise with the global south. We could also have south to south participation. For example, what's happening in India, what's happening in Brazil, what's happening in Nigeria, to create a network, a hive of knowledge and implementable action. And then, of course, engage with practitioners in the industry and the research and the academicians. So together we can create actionable impact. There is no point for research, there is no point for knowledge creation if we are not able to execute that. And that is the whole and sole perspective of what we do as a community. The first event of that is this roundtable. And we are so lucky that we have a phenomenal lineup, of fire starters. Emma, going to be kind enough to show that slide. And we call them fire starters because they are our agent provocators. They're going to be over here to push you, challenge you, and make you question your own ideas, and perhaps come out of this a person who is more inclined towards doing more. We have Edith Alderweireld from Switzerland. I will give a more detailed introduction as each of them come to speak, so don't worry, but this is just to introduce you. Lynn Javier from the Philippines, Juliet from China, Clemente Del Val from Colombia, and Giles Cuthbert from the UK. We also are very lucky because collaborative advantage is what is going to take us forward. And we have great partners for this. We, of course, have Brasfi from Brazil. We have the Global Research Alliance for Sustainable Finance and Investment, or GRASFI. We have the United Nations PRIME, Principles for Responsible Management Education, their working group on sustainable finance. And part of that, of course, we also have what we call the Impact and Sustainable Finance Forum, which is part of the PRIME group, which is over here. Together, we hope and we aspire to give a bit of direction to where this goes forward. This is going to be a very, very interesting session, 90 minutes. It is going to be intersped between fire starters and breakouts. So please, please, please don't go anywhere, because just as when you think, the action is not going to be there, you're going to be called into a meeting and we're going to ask you for your opinion. So knowledge creation, knowledge dissemination, and knowledge discussion. Before we start, I would like to recognize the representatives from the United Nations PRME, PRIME, and the Investment Forum over here, which include Jaap Bos and Deborah Cotton. Jaap has requested to share a bit about their event, which they're doing. So Jaap, you have a full 60 seconds to go for it. The 60 seconds are yours starting now.
Great. Let me actually put something in the chat, because that's probably the best thing to do right now. I represent here the Impact and Sustainable Finance faculty convening at Kellogg. We host an event every year where, thanks to generous support from the Rockefeller and the Ford Foundation, we are able to fly in people, educators from around the world. We have 255 plus members, 120 schools right now, where we get together for a couple of days and share best practice in sustainable finance education. Becoming a member is very simple. You submit your curriculum, you submit your syllabi. The upside is immediate, because the moment that you submit your syllabi, you get access to all the other syllabi. So if you want to know what they're teaching at Harvard, Maastricht, Oxford, whatever it is, become a member, and you can peek behind the closed door, so to say. The next convening is in June. Please join. Have a look at the website that I posted in the chat, and I hope to see you there either this year or next year.
Thank you, Jaap. Absolutely on schedule. I hope I can keep up with you on that. With that, let us start proceeding. And I am privileged and proud to introduce our first fire starter for this event, who is Edith Alderweireld. Edith, forgive me if I mispronounced your surname. Apologies for that. I owe you a drink. Okay. Edith, of course, is a doyen when it comes to the wealth management, private wealth, and investment advisory world. Over the last 25 years, that's quarter of a decade, she has built tremendous experience in asset management and international private banking. At Sonnenberg Wealth Management, she's been a partner since July 2015, where she's created together with them an investment team which looks at investment solutions next to already existing class solutions, so alternate solutions. Very interestingly, and again, I hark back to what Dan said about us all being practitioners and academicians in different balances. She's worked at Sonnenberg, and she's co-founded at the University of Zurich a course on sustainable investments in wealth management. She's also the co-founder of the charity War Child Support in Switzerland, which supports war children in the Netherlands through fundraising. She's been involved with Akatis Fair Value Investment AG as a sustainable investment advisor for some time. But perhaps in my perspective, most important, she is a co-founder of the WISF, the Women in Sustainable Finance movement. And the vision is to create an inclusive, sustainable economy that benefits our society, planet, and economy at large. They're an international organization which are transforming the financial industry into a sustainable industry and leveraging the high interest of women in sustainable finance by combining two very powerful forces, feminine energy and capital. And I'm not going to take any more time. On that note, the floor, or in this case, the screen, Edith, is all yours.
Aditya, thank you so much. I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm blushing after such an introduction. Thank you. Well, when my dear friend Aditya asked me to join, I thought, what I'm going to talk about. And I had to laugh because they call us fire starters. So my mission here today is to spark the fire in you, because the GBSN has been founded, and the goal is leading the change to creating impact and inclusive economies. No change is going to happen if we are not going to act on our conviction, and if none of us is going to act. So action is crucial, and we need all of you to do that. I'm born and raised actually near to where Jaap Bos is in Maastricht, so in Holland. I always wanted to go abroad, and 20 years ago, I moved to Switzerland. And honestly, I mean, a lot of you, when I look at the list of the participants, I was so grateful because I see there's so many people from all different countries and all different directions, universities, but also from the corporate world, from the finance world. And when I started 20 years ago, I would look up to a panel discussion, which we have right now. I'm such a classic girl. I studied economics because I didn't know what else to study. I moved to Switzerland and I built a career in private banking and wealth management. And then when my daughter was born 12 years ago, I decided, well, actually that was when it hit. And I realized, what is going to be my legacy? What am I actually doing on this planet? Is it about, do I want to have another title, or do I want to have more salary? And then I realized that there are two things which I can combine, which I learned in private and in business. And the first one is, and I'm very happy, Aditya, that you told that in the beginning, I want to live for my daughter, that she listens to her heart, that she stands up for it, regardless what the rest of the world is saying. So that's the first call that I'm calling on you. Step into your own truth. Listen to your heart. What is your guidance? Why are you here today? Why are you joining? I see that we have more than 40 people joining us, and you all have that spark why you are here. The second thing is, from a business perspective, then I realized why I have been working in Switzerland for the last 20 years in private banking and international wealth management. Because if you want to change a system, you first have to get to know the system. I know the system, and within Switzerland, we manage 1/3 of global private wealth. If we want to see a change, if we want to balance out all the imbalances that we have created with the way we have been doing business and building our economy in the past, we need new ideas, we need new technology, and we need capital to change it. And when I realized that, then I knew what my mission is within Switzerland. I can, within Switzerland, within the financial system, we can move billions of assets, of capital, into new technologies, into new services, which are needed to leverage out the imbalances that we have created. But you cannot do it on your own. And that's why, with everything that I do, I think it's so important, and that's what's also one of the other main reasons why I'm here, is we need to build on each other. We need to leverage on each other. And it's very, very important that we have the research combined with the corporations, with the actions, with the economy, so that we can learn from each other, that we can share, and that we can leverage on each other, because that's how the new ideas are built. And that's also the way that we can move forward and create new ideas. And then we need capital to change these ideas and to make it happen. So within Switzerland, with everything we do, is we cooperate with the University of Zurich, where you have the department, and Jaap, I know you hope them, and teach it you too, the Center of Sustainable Finance for Private Wealth Management. So they have a huge amount of research on sustainable finance. And also what I wanted to say with the goal of today, with the title capability development for sustainable finance and ESG investments. I think only ESG investments is not enough anymore. ESG investments is already old. It's really about also the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and about the regenerative concept. You know, what is my place within society, and what can I do to have the most possible positive impact on my employees, on the corporation. It's not about only what profit are we creating, but how to profit. And to give you also a practical example on ESG, is which ecological, social, and governance. They look at companies, how they're doing ecologically wise, what they do in the social aspects, what they do in the government's themes. So is enough gender equality on the board, etc. But if you have a company like, for example, Volkswagen, which can have, especially in the past, they did have quite a good ESG rating, and that some rating agencies they still have. If they're not changing their products, the services that they deliver to services and products that give a positive contribution to a sustainable future for our for our planet, of course, but our planet will go on. We're actually talking about, everybody's talking about biodiversity, but we're actually killing our own species if we continue like this, the human being. If we want to have a sustainable future and a sustainable environment for our society, for our children, then we need to have different services and different products. And that's why it's also very important that, for example, in the financial world, we not only look at ESG, but we also look at what do they actually contribute positively with the products and services. Are they changing? Are they contributing in a new way so that we can mitigate all, well, not even mitigate, I think we should do better than where we're coming from since the Industrial Revolution. So that's why my call is it's not only ESG, it's also the Sustainable Development Goals. And that gives us also a common language. Within Women in Sustainable Finance, the organization we just started because we wanted to share the information and all the knowledge that we had. And that's why we built this network. We started in Switzerland, and it's thanks to COVID, we became global. We are working with 3 different pillars. And the first pillar is creating awareness. It's very important because you cannot be aware of something that you don't know. So it's very much of creating awareness. And that's also why these panel discussions and why these events like today are so important. The second thing is, and that's why we also come in with the education, with the universities, is education. You can be aware, but if you want to create change, you need to educate. You need to educate the financial industry. We need the research from the universities on what is actually efficient and sustainable development. And it's a process. So what we said ESG 5 years ago, everybody was talking about ESG. The process is now already towards the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, about regenerative. So the whole process is changing, and it's very important that we keep measuring where are we, where do we want to go, and what is the most efficient way to get there. And I saw that one of the people here in the audience had already addressed the questions, what about greenwashing? I will not go into the topic because I only have 5 minutes, but that's why continuous measuring and continuous research is very important to move that also into practice. And the third thing is action. And here I want to call, because there's something very important, without action, we can create awareness, we can talk, we can educate, and forever. But if we're not going to change the way we behave, nothing is going to change. And therefore, my call on you is there's one very important spark between the education and the action, and that is you. And that is your authentic action. And that's also something which might prevent greenwashing, because if you are authentic, if you know what your role is, and you do it with your spark, and you do it with your fire, like the introduction of Dan and Aditya, I think I cannot be more clear than that. When you know what you have to say to the world, then your spark of influence, the influence that you create, is so much important. So what I would like to call on you today is, I would like you to step into your own footsteps. I would like you to take your responsibility. You cannot, like we sometimes here in the West, we say, well, if we can become sustainable, but if China and India are not going to become sustainable, then nothing is going to happen. And I completely disagree with that statement, because it's about taking responsibility, every single one of us, and then collaborate and then share. Dare to speak your own truth. I know it's scary. I've done it. And I think all of the people here have done it, but find the like-minded people, find the one with the spark, with the positive energy, no negative energy, with the positive energy, and create the change together that we are needed. And that's why it's so important that we collaborate on all different levels, within research, within finance, within the corporations. And that's also the main thing that I want to say here is have the guts, take your responsibility, get into your footsteps, and speak your truth and share your truth. Thank you.
Thanks for this, Edith. You really actually sparked the fire. You lit the sparks, and then let's see where that goes from now. Thank you so much. No pressure on anyone else. I now move forward to introduce to you our second fire starter for this event. And it's very interesting because she represents, perhaps in some ways, the policy side and perhaps the establishment. It's a privilege to introduce Lynn Javier to you. Lynn is the Assistant Governor of the Policy and Specialized Supervision Subsector of the Central Bank of the Philippines, also known as the Banco Central Filipinas. She is the Assistant Governor for Policy and Specialized Supervision under the Financial Supervision Sector. She is the designated Central Bank representative for Philippines to the Basel Consultative Group, the executives meetings of the East Asia Pacific Central Bank's Working Group on Bank Supervision, and the Network for Greening the Financial System work stream on scaling up green finance. Of course, she is also important because she's heading the supervisory policy for things such as money laundering, information technology, treasury, and trust operations. It's a privilege to have Lynn over here. And Lynn, the screen is all over to you. Look forward to a fantastic 5 minutes of fire from you too.
Thank you very much, Aditya. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this important discussion to promote sustainable finance and ESG investments. Just a brief background on what we have done at the Central Bank. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has adopted the sustainability agenda as one of its key strategic thrusts, recognizing our role as enabler, mobilizer, and doer. As an enabler, we aim to foster a regulatory environment that would unlock and facilitate financing for green and sustainable investments. As a mobilizer, the BSP is at the forefront of action by likewise facilitating financing for green and sustainable investments. And as a doer, we are adopting sustainable policies and practices within the organization, emphasizing the importance of individual contributions in achieving our sustainability objectives. I think this is one of the points highlighted by Edith earlier. Now, the BSP is also part of an interagency task force for a whole of government approach in promoting sustainable finance. The task force, which we call as the Green Force, developed the Philippine Sustainable Finance Roadmap and the Sustainable Finance Guiding Principles. Now, different countries face different circumstances that shape how they plan and approach promoting sustainable finance. Countries in Asia, for instance, belong to different stages of economic development, but are among the most affected by climate change. This determines the commitments and priorities of jurisdictions in responding to climate change. For example, the Philippines only contributes 0.33% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. And yet, the Philippines will suffer disproportionately due to its identified vulnerabilities to climate change. Now, as we ramp up efforts to recover from the impact of the pandemic, the Philippines also needs to contend with the impacts of extreme weather events. I would like to draw from our experiences and share 3 gaps or challenges that we continue to see as we promote the sustainability agenda. First, transitioning to a low carbon economy is a critical balancing act. Global expectations should consider the critical balancing act that emerging economies must face in transitioning to a low carbon economy. That is, the recovery, development, and growth of the economy should be continuously supported. Promoting sustainable finance is not as simple as channeling all financing to renewable energy projects or immediately cutting financing of coal-related projects. It also requires being sensitive to vulnerable sectors, supporting the economy, especially when this may individually or collectively be unable to transition. Now, micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, which are the backbone of the economy in emerging markets, should have access to low-cost energy to enable them to continuously support economic recovery and development. Abrupt change in energy sources may increase their cost of doing business, which may in turn affect their viability. This would then trigger unintended consequences on the economy. Now, MSMEs are also considered as among the most vulnerable sectors, considering their resource challenges and knowledge gaps in adapting to climate change. Financing and support should likewise flow to MSMEs to improve their adaptive capacity. Missing out this important segment may affect economic development. But the question is on whether they prominently figure or are prioritized in sustainable finance initiatives. Now, my second point is on education and awareness. This includes communicating climate and environmental science in a way that is best understood by the different stakeholders to enable them to carry out their respective roles in the call for action. There are three different stakeholders I'd like to talk about today: financial institutions, businesses, and households. First, financial institutions must understand the impact of ESG-related risks on their financial position and performance. This would allow them to be more equipped in managing this risk and see the opportunities in sustainable finance. Second, businesses need to be made aware of the impact of their operations on environmental, social, and governance objectives. Moreover, they have a responsibility to research and adopt technologies and practices for more sustainable operations. This was also highlighted by Edith earlier. And finally, households should understand how they could contribute to sustainability and how the collective actions of individuals could translate to long-term gains. Households and businesses as investors also need to be fully aware of their power to shape the behaviors of financial institutions and businesses by expressing their and displaying their strong investor and consumer preference for sustainable products. Now, we need to raise the climate awareness of these different stakeholders, among others, because this gap can decelerate progress towards promoting sustainable finance. But there are challenges in strengthening efforts to promote ESG awareness, particularly in certain jurisdictions that are still addressing the issue on low level of financial literacy. And I would say that for emerging markets like the Philippines. The first 2 points I mentioned highlight the importance of integrating or aligning initiatives and programs to promote the sustainability agenda. Sustainable finance cannot be discussed in a vacuum or independent of other national or regulatory objectives. The first 2 points described show the sustainability should be considered in crafting strategies for financial inclusion. There is also scope, if I may digress a bit, to leverage on the acceleration of digitalization in the financial industry to promote sustainable finance. Now, my final point is on the suitability of tools, which includes taxonomy, measurement metrics, stress testing tools, among others. Taxonomy is an issue that always figures in sustainability-related conversations. Stakeholders should have the same understanding of green and brown, as this ultimately facilitates investments to sustainable projects. But the adoption of a common taxonomy is difficult, again, considering the varied levels of economic development and progress in promoting sustainable finance across jurisdictions. This is one of the factors considered in the development of the ASEAN Taxonomy version 1. The ASEAN Taxonomy is principles-based and considers the different levels of maturity of member jurisdictions pursuing the sustainability agenda, as well as the different states of their economic development. Taxonomy also tags along the issue on measurement, which poses questions on capability, and alignment of metrics for comparability. Another concern related to measurement is on the amount and quality of data for assessing the impacts of climate change. Data collection is quite challenging because of the granular information required and fragmented data sources, among others. However, using this data to run stress testing and simulation exercises to illustrate the impacts of climate change is crucial to better understanding the rationale behind pursuing sustainable finance as a long-term strategic objective. The question is if we can indeed accelerate initiatives if there are jurisdictions that have not yet adopted the tools to move this agenda forward. The points I mentioned are interrelated, any of which may feed into another, thus further magnifying these challenges. It is important to be sensitive to these concerns in developing plans and initiatives in promoting sustainable finance. Again, drawing from our experience, taking a collaborative stance in promoting the sustainability agenda, which was also highlighted by Edith, will facilitate action. There is no monopoly of expertise in this space. We should leverage on networks and partnerships with different stakeholders, both in the public and private sectors, for a cohesive and holistic approach in promoting sustainable finance. I'll pause here, Aditya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And I think the two wonderful ladies, Edith and Lynn, have given us a lot of, I wouldn't say food for thought, but fuel for prospective action. And taking inspiration from that, we are now going to move into our first series of breakout rooms. And each breakout room, as it works, and Emma, please help me out away, will have a few of you with the room moderator. And the question which you have to ponder upon and discuss is what is happening in sustainable finance in your local systems. Talk, interact, exchange notes. Room moderators, you're requested to take notes of what is being discussed, because at the end of this entire roundtable, we will be picking out a small paper with your inputs about what was happening in each of your rooms. Thank you so much. The problem with breakout sessions is that they're never long enough. I know, but well, that's how it always is. I hope you made friends, and hope you guys can stay in touch with each other and take the discussions forward. Emma, I read your message loud and clear. I think that's the best way to do it. I now move forward to the fire starter, next fire starter, a very, very interesting person. Juliet is our next fire starter. Juliet, forgive me, I'm going to try to pronounce your Chinese name, Rui Zhu. Forgive me if I make a mistake. I owe you a drink also if I've done that. Juliet, of course, is the Professor of Marketing, Director of Social Innovation and Business for Good Center, Director of Common Prosperity and Social Innovation Center at the Cheung Kong Graduate School of Business, or CKGSB, which is widely known as one of the best business schools in the world. She's Professor for Social Innovation. Prior to joining CKGSB, of course, she was a Canada Research Chair in Consumer Behavior at the University of British Columbia. And she's done a PhD in marketing from the University of Minnesota. So she has experience on both sides of the Pacific. She's done extensive research on consumer behavior, creativity, and advertising. She's won multiple awards, including the Sauder Research Excellence Award, the CKGSB Award, the Marketing Science Institute's Young Scholar Award. And she's also, very importantly, an AMA Shade Foundation Doctoral Consortium Fellow. She has been featured in a lot of journals such as Science, the Journal of Consumer Research, and in media outlets, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Independent, the CBC, Financial Times, and so forth. And she's passionate, absolutely passionate about teaching on one side, marketing management and consumer behavior at the PhD, MBA, MBA level. And on the other side, talking about social innovation and, of course, sustainable finance as a tool of common prosperity for the country and society to move forward. On that note, I hand over the screen to you, Juliet.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure your expectation is high right now, so lower your expectation. And that will hopefully increase the satisfaction level after you finish hearing my talk. So let me first of all share my screen. I actually prepared a few of slides just to make my 5 minutes count, because even though everybody is enjoying this wonderful session, I'm actually currently in Shanghai. So if you're following the news around the world, I'm in lockdown. So our city, which is one of the most advanced cities in the world, has been under lockdown for the past months or so, which is unbelievable and something I have never imagined would happen to me in 2022. So in the past months or so, we have been experiencing something very dramatic. And so in fact, yesterday I was giving a talk to LBS MBA students talking about social innovation under Shanghai lockdown. And that was kind of an interesting session. But today, in this very short period of time, I want to share with you some of the initiatives that we at CKGSB has been doing in terms of promoting really our entrepreneur EMBA students, to make them, as some of the fire starters mentioned earlier, not to be educated about the idea of doing sustainability, not just the finance, but in other areas, but also do behave actions, engage in real actions in their companies. So let me first of all share with you my screen, just a couple of slides here. Oh. Wow, this is kind of interesting. How come it doesn't show my PowerPoint? I wonder. Okay. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, but we're seeing your Word document that's open.
Oh, you are seeing my Word document? Hold on. Let me do it again. I hope this will work this time. Are you seeing it now?
We have liftoff.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
working.
Yeah, I've been lifted off. Okay, excellent. I like that. So, all right. So basically, I want to give you a very quick background. We have been, in fact, as Jeb was talking about in our breakout room, I'm also working in the university. So we have been offering this class on social innovation and business for good since 2016. So I started teaching this as an elective course, EMB elective course, and then we move on to mandatory course. 2021, last year, we expanded to MBA program, etc., other programs. But the problem with these classes is they are very typical in the business school education, is mainly in the classroom. So people get excited about these courses during the classroom time, but then once they get back to their, company, their work, they just go back to their daily routine. They don't change because it's a lot of work. So what I did with the generous support from our university, our school, is basically to make a practice-based course started last year to our EMBA program, make it a mandatory course. The single purpose of this course is to move from teaching just the theory to actually push the students one step further to make them really practice business for good. So it's to take action and to really make a difference. So how do we do this? So I actually did a bit of research in terms of teaching, and we used this called challenge-based learning, so CBL. The idea here being that usually in our classroom setting, I teach and students listen. But in this classroom practice-based course, I want to flip the table. I want every student to form a question of their own. So it's based on their real question, and this question has to be related to their real work. And then everybody is a learner. So in this practice-based course, the students are the ones to explore answers, and we have a mentor system, and me, including all other RAs, we are all learners to help them to find a solution to their problem. And we offer tools and frameworks, including behavior science and design thinking. But the single focus is to motivate people to learn, act, and reflect, to make that a circle so that it can improve, sort of solving their true problems. So let me show you how we organize this class. So we have each individual student project. So this is a 1 year long practice-based course. It's a tremendous amount of work, as you can imagine. So every student, these are, CEOs or, top leader of their own company, they had to design and execute a 1 year long business for good project. And they submit their initial proposal, their midterm report, and final report. This is a year-long program. And then at the end of the year, we have students in each team representative, and they will compete along with other team representatives to formulate, the winner, the runner-up, etc. So, which is really as a way to get the competition going. But to make this course work, because we have a large body of EMBA students, I can't just do it myself. So we set up a mentor system. These are usually alumni or even successful business people who are not associated with CKGSB, but who believe in the idea of CKGSB, the business for good idea, and who want to be part of this program. So the mentors will work with the students on a year-long basis to help them find their proposal, help them to walk through the project, and eventually deliver the outcome. So what I mean by business for good, the student, because this is a course, so I had to tell them what I mean exactly by business for good, and they had to choose a project that fits this paradigm. So when I say business for good, I mean that these leaders, these EMBA students, they need to identify the public welfare values in their business. So something very related to their business. They want to incorporate these public welfare values into their corporate strategies, reflect and maximize these values into the process of business development and resource allocation, and so that they can achieve sustainable growth while becoming an important force for social advancement. And the reason I want to put the definition here is because I want to tell the students, when I say business for good projects, I don't want you to simply think about, simple donations from a company's perspective. I want you to really incorporate into your corporate strategy something to be truly related to what you do on a daily basis, your core business. And ultimately, I want to tell the students that the best way to maximize your profit or to achieve self-interest is to help others, is to provide social value. And so that's the core idea of business for good. Let me just share with you, and I do have a book in 2019 published in Chinese right now, and we tell students the 3 steps that they can do a business for good project. So let me just share with you so far in 1 year what we have accomplished. The course started in 2021. So each year we have 2 cohorts of EMBA students. And so in 1 year, we have about 800 plus EMBA students doing this project. And they have finished the project. And this means that 800 companies are working on business for good projects seriously. And to help these students work on these projects, we have 100 plus mentors to work along with them. And I have a team of 20 plus staff members to help me run this course. We have seen a lot of value so far, even though it has only been a year. It's a lot of work, and we have seen so much challenges, so many challenges along the way. But just looking at the things that we have accomplished and the students have gained, I just feel very, very satisfying. We have helped the students to incorporate social values into their business strategies and really motivate students to not just to think about what they can do, but actually to actions. And students feel empowered to do these things, not just as a coursework, but really benefit their own business. And the social impact is very clear, not just to our own students at our school, but also colleagues of our students, our staff members. The social impact so far has been really encouraging. I know that I'm short on time, but I just want to give you very quickly some of the subjects, some of the projects that our students are doing. Each one of them are like a little baby for myself. I can talk about for so long, but for example, this one company students, he's the owner of an auto equipment company. So in this 1 year period, he made the factory into a paperless factory. So he designed this project to eliminate all the paperwork in this factory. And so that contributes to the environmental benefits and also help to eliminate some of the problems and mistakes usually comes along with these paper printout, etc. And we also have students working in restaurants, restaurant owners, and they offer food delivery service. They used to use plastic containers. And for this 1 year project, they replaced the plastic container with aluminum foil, and that can be reusable and microwavable. And we have students working for video game companies, and they have designed creative ways to help the elderly to combat addiction. And they have used some of the amazing behavior science techniques that we taught in class to do this. And other examples more related to finance, such as this investment guy incorporating more ESG factors into their final investment decisions. These are just a glimpse of some of the amazing projects that we have been seeing. Our hope, my last slide, by the way, this is just the beginning. We want to, I promised my mentors, they're all doing this for free. I tell them that I want to make sure that I do this at least for 10 years, so work with me. We want to collaborate with others. In the end, we want to create a better business environment in China and around the world. So thank you very much.
Thanks a ton, Juliet, for that insight, and I'm sure you're going to get more collaborative partners and stay strong. You know, as they say, it's darkest before the dawn, so I'm sure things are going to look up for you in Shanghai pretty soon also. I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing our next fire starter, who is Clemente Del Valle. Now, Clemente, of course, first of all, our gratitude. It's 5:30 a.m. for Clemente over there. So thank you so much, Clemente, for waking up so early in Colombia. And just a secret, he doesn't like Colombian coffee. He likes tea. All right. So, well, it's an integrated world. Clemente, of course, currently is a member of the World Economic Forum, the WEF's Sustainable Development Investment Future Council, and the Infrastructure for Community. He is someone who has been an absolute rock and foundation of the capital market, entire industry and sector in Colombia for more than 35 years. He's made invaluable contributions throughout his career to the country. The Market Maker program, for example, which was led and promoted by him, is what has led Colombia now to have its own mature public debt market and a higher secondary market liquidity. Similarly, of course, he was previously a superintendent of securities, and he promoted the bill in Colombia that laid the foundation of the development of the capital market, leading to the growth of the Colombian Stock Exchange. As president of the Financiera de Desarrollo Nacional, the bank specializing in infrastructure in Colombia, which has become a benchmark institution for developing countries, he led the mobilization of various national and international funding sources. He is a result-oriented person with a very high focus on goals and mindset. He's worked extensively with the World Bank in promoting the integration of adequate regulatory frameworks in connection with capital markets. Of course, as I said, he's held prominent positions in Colombia, including the Director General of International Trade, the Deputy Minister for Economic Development at the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and Director of Public Credit at the Ministry of Finance. He is currently a professor and head of the Center for Sustainable Finance at the Universidad de Los Andes, and he holds a master's degree in economics, one, of course, from the same university, and the other from the world famous London School of Economics, also known as LSE. I think I've spoken quite a lot, Clemente. The screen is all yours, my friend.
Thanks, Aditya, and thanks for the introduction. Well, look, I mean, I also thinking on how to be a fire starter. One of the key things, that I learned over these 35 years was the power of finance. The power of finance to get things done. So in my past, I was really focused on using financial markets to help achieve major goals, related to finance or infrastructure, housing. But basically 3 years ago, I decided that I needed to put all of that knowledge on finance to the service of a major objective, which was climate change and sustainability goals. And that's where this center started. It started as a place where we wanted to really use finance as a key discipline to empower private sector on this transformation. Initially, many of the corporates, at least in this part of the world and in this country, think on sustainability still a little bit more as a marginal element of their business. They have foundations, they try to do social work, but many of them don't really understand how important it is to transform the business. And finance plays a key role. And that's where we thought, okay, this center has to be a place where we use knowledge, capacity building, to really build a powerful energy, within private sector. So we started to work with private sector. I heard previous presentation about how important it is, how can you help companies in the transformation. So one of the key areas, where we work is really on how to help companies on their transformation, how we use finance, how we help them to prepare a business case to transform their business and introduce sustainability. So one of our more recent projects really is focused, for example, on waste management. Companies that were doing managing waste, but they were all just filling the landfills with waste. And at the end, some of the key problems were regulation. Some of the key problems was lack of knowledge on the possibilities that you could do, technologies that could be used, the finance, access to finance. Banks are very conservative, and sometimes because of the lack of knowledge of these new technologies, they're a little bit scared to get into these new businesses. So knowledge becomes a key element. I mean, knowledge and training, capacity building becomes very powerful on helping breach this and help overcome this restriction. So that is a key area of contribution. There's a lot of areas. In 2018, there was a big study conducted by a commission, linked to Davos called Better Business, Better World. And they identified 60 large new businesses that could be developed related to sustainability and to achieve the SDGs. We decided to apply the same methodology of those 60 big businesses, apply them to Colombia, and we identified 25 that could have immediate possibilities. And again, what do? We're trying to breach the lack of knowledge from the private sector on those possibilities. Maybe the other big area of work is risk management. And again, there is finance is a key discipline. Risk management on climate change. Climate change, many people talk about climate change, but many people don't really understand the implications climate change could have into their businesses. And knowledge is key here. I mean, how to do risk management on climate change needs you to understand the different natures of different types of climate change risk. I mean, physical risk, transition risk. So that has become a big practice of our center is capacity building on climate change, on financial risk on climate change, and that has become very powerful because it shows not only the risks you're exposed and why you have to take action on that, but also opportunities. Again, I'm very much into the opportunities because I really feel that private sector needs to see the opportunities, and that's the only way we will be able to change this world. And at the end, maybe the last key area of work is how we mobilize big money, because if we don't scale up, if we continue to do small projects, and they are all pilot projects, or every day I meet people with small projects, but they're not able to scale them up, and we need to scale them. We need to bring the big asset managers, and we heard that at the beginning from Edith, the importance of the asset, of the big money coming into this. And I feel, again, that's where we also can play a key role, on educating the asset managers on the opportunities, and then operating as a good, honest broker on trying to make the connection. So I just wanted to let you know that the academia can play a key role on this, and through research, through capacity building, and also acting as a aggregator, on honest broker, bringing together public, private, civil society around some of these problems, and trying to get them resolved as a group, because it's much more powerful than if you try to do it by yourself. And that's why I wanted to support this initiative, because I think the academia can be that key catalyzer that was missing in some way in this picture. So I hope we can contribute, and I hope people see the power of what we can do from the academia on helping on this big agenda.
Thank you so much, Clemente, for those words of wisdom. On that note, we were supposed to now break out into our next series of breakout rooms, but we won't do that, right? Because we live in a VUCA world where you've got to be flexible and agile. And to be very honest with you, we're running a bit short of time. So how we're going to do this now is we're not going to break out into rooms. We're going to make this a giant breakout room, all right, to say, and we're going to throw the question to everyone out there. Our first question is, what is your institution doing, and what would you like it to do more? And anyone can speak up on this, and then we'll go to the next follow-up question after that, which is going to be, what would you like to do as a part of this impact community? So the first question first, would love some of you to just share with us, what are you doing in the field of sustainable finance as an institution, and what more do you think we can do? and volunteers are most welcome.
Start first, Aditya. It's Felipe from Asian Institute of
Go for it,
Management in the
Felipe.
Philippines. Thank you. What we have done now, I've been pushing the sustainable finance agenda for 4 years now. So finally, the institute is. I have convinced them we will now integrate sustainability course on sustainability and ethics for all degree programs. So sustainability will cut across as the common thread in all our degree programs. And the second one is we have to practice what we preach. So we also have a sustainability committee to make sure our own operations, we practice sustainable practices. Otherwise, our students will challenge us. So those are the two things that we are doing at the Asian Institute of Management. Thank you.
Wonderful, Felipe. Anyone else want to share inputs? It'll help us and guide us.
I could go in here. I could
Go for it,
talk here.
Anne. Thanks,
Okay.
Anne.
Well, I'm from the Responsible Finance Initiative at the Gordon Institute of Business Sciences, which is in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And what we've identified as a critical missing link in this is really that perhaps almost, well, shall I say, slightly unrealistic expectation that we can mobilize these trillions and trillions of dollars that are tied up in long-term savings to try to meet some of these developmental challenges and goals that we have. And I think we're only just beginning to understand how much of a massive cultural change that's going to demand of the investment community and investment industry. And how on earth do we do that without breaking the back of these businesses, these financial services companies? So what we're trying to do in the Responsible Finance Initiative is to actually give people a sort of transitional business model that says, how do I take an asset management business that works, again, in a modern portfolio theory construct, and suddenly now start having to incorporate impact along with risk and return? And how do I actually make the dial move in any meaningful way if we don't change absolutely everything, from the way we benchmark, from the way we structure portfolios, from the way we collect information about the companies. And so I think the world is only just beginning to wake up to how far more complex this problem is than they ever imagined. And it's a little bit like suddenly turning around to the asset management industry and saying, you've built a factory that works on petrol engines, and now we suddenly want you overnight to operate with using electric power. You know, it's going to be a massive transition that takes place, and that's what we're focused on. So anybody who wants to come and join us on that, please connect with me, because we'd love to hear your insights. It's a very, very technically problematic area of the value chain.
Thanks a ton, Anne, and I'm sure a lot of us will take up that invitation. Of course, we have Viviane and Deborah who are mentioning what they are doing, of course, in the panel over there, and I'm sure there are going to be lots of areas of collaboration. Now, I'm going to now move forward and introduce our final fire starter for this entire event. Well, no pressure on him. He's coming at almost towards the end after a lot of inputs and insights. I'm really excited to see what his viewpoints are. It's a pleasure to introduce Giles Cuthbert to all of you. Giles is the Managing Director of the Chartered Banker Institute in the UK. He leads the Institute's thought leadership on ethical banking, particularly around digital ethics. He's got decades of experience in the arena of professional education and professional standards. He's had a lot of education professionalism projects, with the Chartered Banking Institute, developing strategic programs to diversify areas of the banking industry across the globe. He specializes in bespoke professionalization programs, and these projects have actually reached out to tens of thousands of bank professionals. Very recently, Giles has been working to develop a global education strategy in the field of sustainable finance with the United Nations Environment Program for Financial Institutions, also known as UNEP-FI. Giles, I won't waste too much of time introducing you, because I think you can do a far better job by speaking on yourself, and no pressure on you, my friend. He's like the proverbial Atlas on whom the entire globe sets. So Atlas, go for it.
Thank you, Aditya. It's been a great day so far, so I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to speak. And yes, on that last point that was made by Anne, we'd also be delighted to talk about collaboration going forward. We deliver certificates in green sustainable finance, certificates in climate risk to banks around the world. But to do that, we very much work with local partners in business schools as well as other banking institutions. So always very interested to talk. But how I'd like to start my fire starting phase is just to say, you know, imagine if a business customer walked into a bank asking if you would fund their business, and they said, but you know, it's unsustainable. Financially, it's unsustainable. It's going to go down in 10 years, but come on, lend me the money, invest in my business. It's fine. And it sounds ridiculous, but that's actually what we're doing in the current environment through the risk of stranded assets and the models we're working with. We are saying as financial institutions, let's invest in the unsustainable, and that is just not credible. So I was really delighted today to see that this was a call to action. Because finance does drive the very nature of society. But Aditya asked me to be challenging, and here's my first challenge. Rachel Carson published Silent Spring in 1962. The first sustainable investment fund in the UK was set up in 1988. Yet business schools are supposed to be leading the agenda. And we're talking now about what we might be doing in the future. Well, actually, the fires started many years ago, and we need to get blazing on what we do in this area and what we offer in this area to make sure that finance professionals have the understanding and the opportunities to really look at their portfolios and analyze them. And I think some really brilliant points came out today about that. Edith was saying that, a lot of this was already getting old. ESG is already old. We're moving on to look at societal impact. We're looking at nature-based products. It's not just TCFD anymore, it's TNFD. But yet banks aren't changing their products. I think as well, when I think about this, I say, why do we talk about sustainable finance? Surely every financial decision should have sustainability at its heart. We actually need to mainstream sustainability into products to the extent that we're not seeing this distinction between sustainable products any longer. We just have finance that works. And to that end, I think Edith's comments that awareness, education and action are absolutely key. There's a lack of awareness at present. There's absolutely a lack of education. There's a lot of executives out there who know they need to move in this direction, who want to move in this direction, but really aren't very sure what to do. And that's where, as business schools and as professional bodies and education bodies, we can really pull together how we operate in this area. And I also think that point on taking responsibility was key. I noticed, Aditya, you talked about the North sharing expertise with the South. Well, the Northern Hemisphere, I would say, actually the North's got us into a lot of this problem, and there's an awful lot we can learn from the South. And I think Lynn made that point really well, particularly when talking about a just transition and how we have to bring bodies along with us, but also mentioning the data and metrics involved there. And I did find it quite funny because when Clemente was speaking, he actually said something I had down in my notes when he was talking about financial services to empower change. I did think he was exactly right in that. And I think one really critical point here that I think is really concerning, and Clemente made it, was there's huge opportunities here. Western countries, businesses, and indeed businesses all around the world say they're going to move in this area. So that is a massive financial opportunity for financial organizations and indeed for other organizations. And then for us as educators, think of the number of people who work in banks around the world and finance companies and insurance companies who need to know about this stuff. You know, again, it's a huge commercial opportunity. So while I think it's a tough environment, it's a complex environment that is changing constantly, I think what's absolutely critical to remember is for educators, it is the most enormous opportunity to build curricula that work for the future and who work for the organizations and the individuals who work in those organizations who want to change the world. So I would say, you know, this really does have to be a call to action. There's a fantastic opportunity here, and there's a massive risk of not acting. But as educators, we need to recognize that we are absolutely central to really the future of the planet. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you so much, Giles, and spot on with the timing too. And thank you so much for pretty much doing my job. I was supposed to do the conclusion over here, and you pretty much covered that, which is just as well because we are a bit short of time. So thank you for that, Giles. Ladies and gentlemen, they say dawn shows the day. And if this was the dawn of what's to come, I can tell you that we're going to bring a lot of magical stuff here at this impact community, which is on sustainable finance and ESG investments. But what is more important is I'm taking a point away from everyone over here. I mean, we have to collaborate. I mean, all of us represent amazing organizations with strengths and weaknesses, all right, with a limited outreach, but we have our own expertise. If we work on this alone, it'll take us several lifetimes to make an impact. But united, if we stand, we can make an impact now. So my two pence worth of thoughts in this is, let's come together. Let's come together because we have practitioners, we have researchers, we have trainers, we have implementers, we have students, we have academicians, and we have directors and deans of business schools. Business schools and universities are supposed to be the vanguard of change. Let us be the vanguard. Let us be the people who actually enable the change. Is change easy? It never is. Does change have to be constant? It always does. Because the simple thought and the simple idea put it into your heads is, if we as representative of perhaps the most progressive sub-segment of the human species, and that's what professors and leaders and academicians are supposed to be, if we don't do it, then how can we expect anyone else to do it? We've got to lead the change. It's not going to be easy, but then we've got to do it. And I'm sure as the sun rises over Bogota, as the clock strikes midnight in New Zealand, Ivan, I think you're almost in New Zealand. I can see I'm slightly dozing off there. And as the time moves for me to move from my cup of tea to a glass of cognac and sherry in India, I bid all of you the best of luck. And please reach out to each other on LinkedIn. And I can tell you one thing, and I can see that with Dan and Emma over here, you're going to hear from us. All of you are going to hear from us, all right, in a good way, not like the FBI or the CIA or the KGB. And we're going to collaborate together to make change happen, because we are going to do it. And the world, my friends, is going to follow all of us on this screen and in this room. On that note, I'm done. Thank you so much. Dan, Emma, any last words?
I have the privilege of saying thank you, Aditya, for leading this effort today, this morning, this afternoon, this evening. You've done a fantastic job. And as I started by saying, I know you well enough to know that what you said at the end really matters, and that we will be in a place where there's collective action in the future. And I want to point out that we call this initiative an impact community for a reason, right? It's not a learning community. It's great to learn from each other and exchange ideas, but ultimately our aspiration for this group is collective action. And I think we've, judging from the chat near the end, judging from the breakout groups, and judging from the fire starters, we have a lot ahead of us. Now, I wasn't counting how many beers you owe and to whom, but we do have that on video. So we'll want to make sure that, Aditya, you pay up as well. So thank you to everyone. Thank you especially to Aditya, and you will be hearing from us shortly. And we look forward to working on this together globally. Thanks.